Joining us on the line is Scott Campsall from Akami Kai Karate. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Dan. How are you?
Good. Now, how has, or maybe the question should be, has it changed Remembrance Day for you since, say, you were a kid to today? How do you view it? Has that changed?
You know what? Every year when Remembrance Day rolls around, like especially doing martial arts, the one thing that I keep on trying to remind people that do what we do is we do this voluntarily. Like there are places in around the world where it's not by choice. They have to learn how to do all of the self-defense skills that we implement just as a physical fitness routine, and they have to do it just to survive. And if it wasn't for veterans and soldiers in the military, we wouldn't be able to do that.
And the fact, too, I think, is that we do have a volunteer army here, and in many countries, there's no choice. Thank you very much. You're how old? And now you're a member of the military.
Yeah, and isn't that scary? Like my son's 17, and it's one thing if he wanted to go do cadets, then he never did. But again, it's okay. It turns out to be an activity. It's a fun activity that maybe it'll be good for discipline. We'll go and we'll put our kids in it, and then as opposed to other places where you've got kids that are 12 years old or 11 years old and they're holding machine guns.
Yeah, well, and let me say, I can't say enough about the cadets here in Uxbridge and the surrounding areas as well. And it has changed since I was in high school. That program is a wonderful program to provide leadership to youth. It is not about war. It's about leadership. And I think about how many different projects I saw the local cadets doing, whether it was road cleanup. They would help break down things at the fair. They would help, for other events as well. All behind the scenes kinds of things, doing the dirty work. And they actually send them off to leadership groups as well. And it's such an important organization. And I hope it does well, because obviously these are tough times in trying to get volunteers right now.
Well, even just watching them when the ceremonies are at the cenotaph, and you can see them, granted, they're, that's martial discipline, but you watch them and they're standing there and they're focused, and how could you not have respect for that? Like if you can get a kid to start having that kind of discipline, that's going to just totally take off for the rest of their lives.
Discipline. That's an interesting way to segue into a subject I wanted to talk to you about. With what is happening right now in the U.S., where American President Donald Trump does not want to concede losing the presidential election campaign, I thought, that's an interesting teaching point. I mean, this is one of those teaching moments, the possibility of a teaching moment, because while kids are seeing, basically a grown man pout, there's a teaching moment in there in that you do lose in life. And I was thinking about, being in martial arts and things like, and in competitions, you're not always going to win. Nobody goes through and is completely perfect. So you have to learn how to lose. When you are teaching the sport, is that a component?
Yeah, actually, it's not just teaching. Like we brought in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a couple of years ago, and that was a whole new type of martial art for me, because I've done punching and kicking, and there's forms. I've done a couple of tournaments with that, but jiu-jitsu is mostly grappling and wrestling, and so and you can't punch and kick. They took that out. You're not allowed to do that. So and even some of the wrist lock techniques that I would have learned in Aikido, not allowed to do that. So it was confining for me to be taught. I'm still taking classes, but it's confining to say, okay, you can do this stuff, but you can't do the other stuff that you're really comfortable doing. So I'll be honest with you, Dan, I stink at it. Like I'm watching guys that are so young and they're picking this up really fast, and the competition wise, it almost gets frustrating. Like there were times where I've been doing this for years, and why can't I do this? Like but you go back and you realize that this is the activity you enjoy, and you just try to keep on getting better.
How do you teach that, though, to youth? Or is that something that's just innate with someone getting into a sport? Because you've been doing the sport for so many years, and the goal is win, right? You were competitive, so it's win, and you don't want to lose. Or maybe the question should be, how do you teach yourself that, you are going to lose, and how you handle that?
Well, I think there's a mindset. like we have, we do character words in our Little Dragons program. Every month we pick a different word. So it could be discipline, it could be self-esteem, it could be, and we just basically analyze that. So our Little Dragons program is like 3 to 6 year olds. So a lot of these kids, they don't know determination, for example, or like you say, explain to me what determination means, and they give you those blank statements and blank stares. So this month was fairness. And it actually came up that we started talking, well, what happens when you lose a game? Like, is it fair to have a temper tantrum and freak out? Actually, talking about the election, I sort of joke because we have parents that do the Little Dragons class, and so I said, so let's say you're losing an election, and you decide you're going to not concede defeat. Is that acting like you're being fair? And so the parents laugh at it, but we just basically bring it back to, okay, let's say I'm cheating at a game, or let's say I'm doing this. Like, is that being fair? And again, I've talked to you about this before. Our idea for what we're doing now is not necessarily can we teach how to punch and kick. We're trying to be more of a child development center.
Right. Now, and is expectation part of winning and losing? Because while you may not win the match, you haven't lost. If you know what I mean? In that, actually, there are lessons to learn.
Yeah, and actually one of the best stories that I ever heard about a competition where I think it's going along the lines of what you're saying is my first martial art instructor was judo instructor first before he was karate. And he told me one time there was 2 guys that were in a tournament, and the one guy threw the other guy. And so when you did the throw, he won. And the guy who got thrown, I guess the throw was so effortless and the technique was so good that the guy who got thrown that actually lost the match got up and gave the other guy a big hug and said, "That was awesome!" Like, and to me, that's the best way, I think, especially when you're considering competitors that are doing the same activity and we just do it because we enjoy it. Isn't it good if we can celebrate somebody's victory as opposed to put them down?
Hey, you get danced by Wayne Gretzky when you're a defenseman. You get danced by Wayne Gretzky, right?
I can believe it. Yeah, but wouldn't it be awesome? Like, how many hockey players want to play hockey with Wayne Gretzky?
Right, exactly, and have the opportunity and go, kudos. You're there. We're here. Thank you very much for playing with the rest of us.
Yeah,
kind of thing. So listen, let's wrap up on this Remembrance Day. Do you have family or anyone close to you or friends that are connected to the military, have been connected to the military, and maybe somebody that you would think about on a day like this?
My step-grandfather was in the military. My grandmother, she was actually a welder, and she used to do welding of Navy ships. I've got a little bit of history, not something where I mourn the death of someone every Remembrance Day, but again, I'm just going full circle on this conversation. I'm just so thankful that we live in the country we do, and the utmost respect, and lest we forget.
Yeah, and I think that's important too. A very important message in that it's not just remembering, if you have relatives who have passed away, but it's those who stood up, who were members of the community, who were welding or doing whatever job they had to do in a very difficult time. And I think that message this year is more important than ever. We talk about people wearing masks and people saying that their rights are being violated. It's amazing when you think about someone saying that in times like this on Remembrance Day, and you hope maybe that message gets through about community.
Yeah, we've had 8 months of pandemic, and I don't even think that comes close to a world war.
No, not at all. And it is those little stories, and I'm sure everyone has one or two. And as you say, people don't necessarily talk about what they were doing during the war. But my great uncle Al Pollard, I did get it out of him, years later, that he was one of the radio guys, and he was stationed in England. And the technology at the time with the radar was cutting edge. And to learn that, and that, he was part of it is fascinating, and an incredible part of our family history, and just one of those little moments that you can remember on a day like this. Listen, Scott, we want to thank you for your time today.
Oh, thank you.
And please stay well and stay safe, and keep teaching those great lessons to those young kids.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that.
Take care.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. That is Scott Campsall from Okami Kai Karate on this Remembrance Day.